I didn't quite see you there. Hello, my name is Nicole, I am a polar elf, and welcome to the Santa's Workshop. In today's video, it is my honor to announce the best romances of 2022. Why? Because I love love. I recommend this as a gift for yourself, but also for your sweethearts on St. Valentine's Day. You would think, what an elf has to do with St. Valentine's? A lot of things. We're not just about Christmas and New Year's out here. We also really love other holidays because serving just one holiday is not possible in this economy.
Why are you smiling like that?
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite. That's your favorite, okay?
Okay.
Work is your new favorite.
The first book that I want to talk about is How to Bang a Billionaire by Alexis Hall. It might sound a little bit spicy, but who here doesn't like a little bit of spice? The book is set in England and it follows a young man named Arden St. Eve, who is an English lit student at Oxford and who meets a fascinating billionaire through a charity telethon that the school organized. He immediately recognizes the perfect partner in Caspian, and though Caspian feels the same, he hesitates because of his past experiences. The interesting part of the story is that it serves as a good reply to the 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon. I've heard these books are very popular in the human world, and not only this is a good book, it's also a much healthier dynamic in which both characters know what they want, but because of their own insecurities cannot really negotiate the perfect relationship for themselves. It's a very deep and emotional book, just the way I like them, and it talks a lot about trust and vulnerability in relationships, which is my favorite part in all romances. I highly recommend this. Alexis Hall is phenomenal. He knows how to write very deep and serious books with very readable and funny plots. He's also a master of dialogue and group dynamics. His friendship groups are one of the best that I've ever read in a romantic fiction. So, highly recommend this book. It's actually part of a trilogy. I have not read the last two books yet, but I will absolutely do so. The book is also not as spicy as you expect it to be because Alexis Hall's style usually doesn't imply that. So if you're not into very explicit romances, it would be a perfect pick. The next book had stolen my heart. It's in my favorite subgenre, historical romance. It's The Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Ridley. If you like the camp of historical romance and the warmth of found family trope, you would absolutely love this book. This is a story about Tommy Winchester, who is a master of disguises. Her whole family is a family of orphans that were randomly plucked from the street by a wealthy baron. They are outcasts in high society, but they don't really care about it as long as they have each other. Each book in the series follows a different sibling, and this time it's all about Tommy. Each sibling also has a special talent because they were raised on the street, and Tommy knows how to disguise herself and can pretend to be absolutely anyone. Tommy also has a ridiculous crush on a girl named Philippa. Philippa is from a wealthy family, but her parents are not titled, so she is allowed into high society, but her parents want to go bigger. They want to marry her off to a titled gentleman. Philippa is a blue stocking. She loves spending time with her books, but she starts experiencing pressure from her parents to finally find a fiance. During her walk on the promenade, she meets Tommy in a disguise of a baron, and she doesn't immediately recognize her as a fake, so they strike a conversation. Philippa is surprised at how flirtatious she feels because she never felt anything toward a guy before. This time, everything is different because Tommy is not a guy. Very quickly into it, Tommy confesses that she's been in a disguise and she's actually Tommy, and they come up with a very funny plan to pretend that the Baron continues to court Philippa to get her mother off her case. There are additional subplots and interesting background characters, but the main thing, of course, is the romance, and the romance is really good. These two have amazing chemistry. The tropes that the author used made the novel a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. I had such a fun time with this novel. I inhaled it, and I would absolutely read it again. Husband Material by Alexis Hall. Yes, I have another Alexis Hall book on my list of favorites because how could I not? Husband Material is a second book. It's a sequel to Boyfriend Material, which I really loved. What I enjoy about Alexis Hall's books the most is how he writes vulnerability and how masterfully he writes relationships about characters that are opposites. This book was such a hit with me as well because in Boyfriend Material we were just getting to know our characters. They were pretending to be dating because they both needed fake partners for different reasons, and they were just trying to find ways to communicate with each other. Husband Material starts when they've dated for a bit and they know each other quite well, but of course, because they are opposites of each other, they have conflicts. And it's interesting to read about conflicts because people don't really change that much. So it's interesting to see them on their journey and how the old conflicts pop up again when they need to make important decisions. It's a very interesting queer romance because it's a rare one when the characters have to figure out what they want from their future. If they want to conform to the culture that they live in, if they want to find their own path, if they are just not good for each other. This book touches on a lot of adult themes, and by adult themes I don't mean something explicit. I mean themes that are more important for you when you reach your late 20s and early 30s, because you're presented with a new set of issues that you need to solve. I was crying, I was laughing, I was scared, and not many authors can make me experience so many emotions throughout a book. The next book that I want to mention is the delightful Delilah Green Doesn't Care by 𝕊𝕆𝕀𝔸𝕃. I really enjoyed this one because it's a perfect blend of family drama, romance, and a bit of millennial/Gen Z humor. It's a story about Delilah, who comes from a very small town named Bright Falls. When she became an adult, she decided to move to New York City and never look back because she had a very strained relationship with her family. It's very Cinderella-like if you think about it. Delilah's mother died from cancer, and her father found a new partner who also experienced partner death from a terminal illness. Both of them had children. They seemed like a perfect pair, but the new stepmother never accepted Delilah, and Delilah never quite fit into the new family. Her father later died, leaving her on a woman that was very much a stranger for her, so she never felt accepted or loved and decided to move away and start a new life for herself in a different place. And it would have gone according to plan, but Delilah's stepsister Astrid decides that she wants Delilah to come for her wedding and be the photographer. Delilah is struggling financially, and this gig would be really helpful for her, so she decides to come despite her initial resentment. When she rolls into the town, the past wounds are reopened, and she has to face them despite not wanting to. And she also meets the new grown-up version of her stepsister's friend named Claire, and finds that she's extremely attracted to her. It has a great atmosphere, great chemistry between the two heroines. Claire is also a character that I really enjoyed because she is a single mom with her own issues. Her life doesn't revolve around Delilah. She has to figure out how to parent her child with a guy who's pretty absent and with whom she constantly falls back into bed with. It's about still very young people, at least very young in heart, trying to figure out the very hard adult issues. I love the small town romances that allow the protagonists to relive their youth, finally face the bad things that happened to them, and to essentially come out of them a winner. This is a very fun book with a lot of emotional depth, and this is what I'm looking for in my romances. The next book is Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrun, and it's a holiday romance. Atmospherically, it's very much in the vein of the 80s and 90s romantic comedies. Serendipity plays a significant part in this romance, as in a lot of romantic comedies of 80s and 90s. The story follows Ellie. She moves to Portland to pursue her graphic design career, and she gets a really sweet job in animation in a big firm. She is pretty lonely though because her family is very absent. She never quite knew her father, and her mother only sees her as a money-making machine. On a Christmas Eve, she bumps into a woman named Jack in the bookstore, and they have an immediate magical connection. They spend a whole day together, but then something happens the next morning and they are separated. A year later, she lost her animation job. She's still very lonely in Portland, and she works as a barista for crappy wages. But then, a miracle, the cafe's landlord named Andrew, who is an extremely attractive guy, offers Ellie to pretend to be his fake fiance so he would be able to get his inheritance. It's a win-win situation for both of them. He's going to get money, she's going to get her own percentage, and she also won't be alone for Christmas. They decide that the perfect opportunity for Ellie to meet his family is at the holidays, and he invites her to their house. When she arrives to their house, which honestly could be only described as a mansion, she meets Jack again. It turns out that Jack is Jacqueline, and Jacqueline is Andrew's sister. This novel has a perfect recipe between the old school romantic comedy atmosphere, the emotional turmoil of the characters, the fun and festivity of the holidays, and the family drama. I really liked the way the author used the holidays to move the characters along. I loved how she dealt with the suspense elements and the elements of serendipity, how she managed to convince me these two characters would absolutely fall in love in a day, how connected they felt to each other. Their feelings for each other felt very authentic. Now, while it's still winter, you can absolutely pick this book up and enjoy it because it's definitely very wintry, but it's also universally just a good book. It's not seasonal as much as it's solid. I highly recommend this one. I had a really good time with it. The M of historical romance that I've chosen for this list is The Governess Game by Tessa Dare. Now, at this point, I've read all 3 books in the series and I'm awaiting the last one because it is a quartet, and in my opinion, this is the best one out of the 3 so far. Why? Because I think it's the funniest. The story follows a girl in her mid-20s. Her name is Alexandra, and she is not titled. She has to work for her meal. Her father was a clockmaster and she picked up on his craft. Now she is a clockmaster herself. She visits wealthy people and fixes their clocks. In one of those workdays, she visits the house of 𝕊𝕆𝕀𝔸𝕃, who is a duke with a pretty scandalous reputation. He became a guardian of 2 little girls who just lost their parents, and he doesn't really know what to do with them. And when Alexander comes to fix the clocks in his house, he mixes her up with the new candidate for the governess. She says that she doesn't really want to be a governess and that she's not educated enough to be one, but at the end, as you figured out already, she becomes the girl's governess. Chase expects her to quit, but Alexandra is quite stubborn herself, and she sees that the girls just need more attention and love, so she tries to find a way into their hearts and also into Chase's heart. This is a very fun novel. I love these kids. I think they served as a wonderful comedic relief. I loved how the relationship between Chase and Alexander were developing, and how eventually we discovered why Chase was really bad with the kids and where the crux of the issue actually lies. I really enjoyed this novel. One of my favorites from Tessa Dare, probably the favorite of mine so far. So I obviously recommend it if you're looking for a fun historical romance. Now, if you want to walk on the dark side, I have for you Requiem for Immortals by Lee Winter. This is a story about Natalia, who is a professional cellist by day and a professional assassin by night. She works for one of the Australian gangs and usually deals with really bad people. She's very confident, I would even say arrogant, and she doesn't allow anyone in to her life. One day she gets a very odd order. Her new target doesn't seem to be connected to any of the gangs. She doesn't seem to be involved in any financial machinations, and she wants to figure out who ordered the kill and why. She meets the woman and she realizes that this is gonna be her ruin because they develop an incredible chemistry and it's really hard to fight it. This romance has so many twists and turns. It's very engrossing. The plot is very interesting. The characters are incredible. They are complicated. They are difficult to love. And it left a lot of opportunity for unresolved romantic and sexual tension. I love this book because it takes its time, because it's slow, because the tension never wavers, it's always growing, it's always high, and it makes the satisfaction from finishing the book and finally seeing how the story plays out much higher. Vulnerability is my thing. I love when it's explored in romances. If I don't see it, if it's not explored, I struggle with liking romances, and this theme is very much present in this book as well. If you're looking for books about people with unconventional professions, I do recommend it. I really love this. I actually have 2 special mentions this time. It's the books that were 5-star contenders but stumbled a little bit, and I still really enjoyed them. I could have given them 5 stars if I was a bit lenient. The first out of these 2 is House of Agnes by Fiona Zedde. Now, if you read the Requiem for Immortals and you're looking for something along the lines, this would be a good book to follow up with. This is a story about Agnes, who is a madam in a modern brothel. She inherited this business from her father, with whom she had a very strained relationship. She is a very lonely person and she dedicates herself almost fully to her job. She doesn't have many friends and she doesn't trust many people. She has a child that she adopted, so most of her time is spent at work and at home. One time she visits a secret club in hopes of finding someone with whom she can spend a little time with without anything serious, and she's approached by a very stunning and gorgeous woman named Lola. Lola is heavily flirting with Agnes, only then to ask if she can work for her in her brothel. Agnes is disappointed and she feels that Lola is not telling her everything, but she decides to challenge her and to take her in. Lola turns out to be not as simple, and she definitely has a few secrets up her sleeve. Her older sister, whom she really loved, disappeared one day, and she's been struggling with the mystery. When she grew up a little, she got the call from the morgue. It turned out that her sister's body was found, and they need someone to look at it. Along with 3 possessions, the police found a pen with the logo of House of Agnes, Agnes's brothel. And Lola believes that her sister had worked for Agnes in the past and that Agnes played a hand in her death. So she decides to infiltrate House of Agnes and once and for all figure out what happened to her sister. So this is a story about 2 people with a lot of secrets. They are struggling with their attraction for each other because they both are very stubborn and they have their own goals that are mostly opposite. It was a very interesting theme and setting for a romance. I love the suspense and I really enjoyed the characters. The second book in my special mentions is of course Waking Up with the Duke by Lorraine Heath. Lorraine Heath was an author that I discovered for myself in 2022 and I highly recommend it to you. What Lorraine Heath is good at is a spicy premise and a very mellow, sweet romance. And I love that because the plot hooks me in, but the romance makes me happy. The story is about a guy named Ransom who, with his best friend, got into a carriage accident. He came out of it unscathed, but his friend got run over and suffered an injury to his back. So he now uses a wheelchair. His name is Wallflower. They've been friends for ages, and he has a wife named Jane with whom Ransom is a little bit or a lot in love with. But Since she was promised to another man, a man that is his best friend, he never tried to even tease the waters and flirt with her. So when he visits Wallflower again and they have a little bit of a drink, he's shocked when his friend tells him that the only way he would forgive Ransom is if he impregnates Jean. It's a very scandalous offer and it's shocking for both Jean and Ransom, but Wallflower is trying to convince them that it's a good idea because Jane really wants kids and he can't give her any. Plus, Ransom is a trusted friend and Wallflower and Ransom are somewhat related. So it's not like he's a stranger. Jane has been angry at Ransom for ages since the accident because he was the one leading the horses and she doesn't know she can tolerate him enough to go through with this unusual plan. But eventually both agree to do it and they go to the country for a month to attempt to conceive a child. Throughout this month they actually get to know each other better and they fall in love with each other. So they're now in a very difficult situation because Jane is still married and she wants to be loyal to her husband and Wallflower is Ransom's best friend. This novel had enough drama to keep it interesting. This scenario was very fascinating and I was engrossed in this complicated triangle. It was very unusual and it kept me reading, but also I really loved the relationship between Ransom and Jane, despite the circumstances of their romance. Once again, I do recommend it, especially if you're looking for something interesting and original in historical romance. So, my friends, this has been it. These are all the romances that I really loved in 2022 and that I recommend to read and to gift to people. In the comment section, tell me about the romances that you loved in 2022, if our tastes aligned and you read some of the books that I've read and also enjoyed them. If you didn't enjoy them, also tell me. If you want to support your friendly neighbor elf, you can like this video, subscribe to this channel, and leave a heart emoji in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you soon with the best books that I've read in 2022 that were not romances. And on this note, I will have to go back to my elf work.